Hi everyone, thanks for joining me and welcome. Today I'm focusing on another word that bothers me. That's another D word, and it's the D word of denial. Before I go any further, I'm issuing a trigger warning with this video. Anyone that has watched my videos, if you're familiar with my videos, you know that I never seek to judge anyone for what they're doing or how they're behaving or what they're thinking. I have made plenty of mistakes in my life, God only knows, so I'm in no position to judge. But I do like to get you thinking differently, to stir some thoughts, to get a different perspective, and maybe to just nudge you into taking some positive actions that are going to push you in the direction of thriving in your life. Because if you're in denial on any level, then something's not right and you won't be happy. So I make no apology if this triggers you, and believe me, it triggered me after I did the work behind this, because I thought, yeah, you need to practice some of what you preach too, and I'm very up for that, very open to that. And it's taken me a while to put this information together in this video, because it's a bloody nightmare field. Have you ever tried to explain to somebody what denial looks like when they can't or won't even recognize it in themselves? I'm not in denial, but I don't know what denial looks like. It's really, really difficult to get people to understand they're in denial. But I've had a stab at it, so bear with me, and I hope it resonates with you. So how does denial present itself? Well, I'm moving into the Angie Hayes world now. This is my belief and my thought process in terms of how denial shows up in life. And primarily, it's fear-based. So either we stay with a person or a situation that doesn't serve us because we fear the outcome if we did make changes. So that may mean, that we don't have the self-belief, because we are all little legends after all, and we can make improvements in any area of our life. But on some level, you don't have the self-belief to expect that things can change or be improved. And that often means that we believe there's something wrong with us and we're part of the problem. And I'm going to talk more about this with an example in a minute. Well, there's another sort of form of denial that plays out with people where they absolutely flatly refuse to accept the reality of how things are. Now, I've talked about acceptance before. But what happens if you refuse to accept the reality of how things are is that you will expend copious amounts of mental energy in one of two ways, generally. Either in sitting around waiting, hoping, pining, hoping that things will change. Probably doing quite a bit of complaining into the bargain to anyone that will listen as well. So we're in that realm of victimhood where we've decided to unpack and live. Not that I'm being judgmental, because we all reside there at some point in our lives. The good thing is that we recognize it. Or we will expend copious amounts of energy doing everything within our power to try and take back control of the situation, even though the situation or the outcome may be outside of our control, but we will still spend copious amounts of energy researching, doing stuff, taking actions. So let me ask you these fundamental questions then. If in that scenario I just mentioned, the latter scenario, you're doing all this stuff and you're still not getting the outcome you expect, what's that telling you? Are you getting the outcomes you expect? And if you're in the former scenario, where you feel powerless in a situation, if you like, and you have to go along with it, and you're part of the problem, is that making you happy? Is staying in that place helping you to thrive? Is it changing the outcome that you would like to see? And if the answer to both of those questions is a big fat no, then denial is playing out on some level, definitely. So how's this for a little equation then to be thinking about? Fear plus low self-worth plus low self-belief equals powerlessness. And powerlessness is what drives the fear behind denial. Phew, I hope I've explained that and hope it's landed. So I'll repeat it. Fear plus low self-worth plus low self-belief equals a feeling of powerlessness. And powerlessness is the thing that drives the fear behind denial. So let's bring it to life then a little bit and come up with a couple of examples. So I'm going to go back to the latter example, a person who struggles to accept things as they are. So let's call that scenario 1 then. Okay, so I see this a lot in this room around people in relationships. And this can be one of the most difficult things to help you guys with, but I have a plan. Okay, I have a plan to overcome this. So I see this a lot. People who present here in this room who desperately hold on to the hope that a person that they want to have a long-term relationship with wants the same thing, even though their words, actions, and behaviors make it abundantly obvious that they don't want the same thing. And believe me, this happens. And the reason it gets more difficult to treat guys with this belief system is because you are making a conscious choice to do something, hold on to something that isn't making you happy, that isn't making you thrive, isn't helping you to thrive. You're prepared to wait, you're prepared to hope, hold out, not move on, not thrive. The outcome you want is outside of your direct control. So what the hell is going on here then? Well, firstly, from my perspective, as well as the fear playing out, that fear of powerlessness, we're dealing with a self-worth issue. Absolutely dealing with a self-worth issue. In that equation is self-worth. On some level, you cannot feel you deserve that happy, fulfilling relationship, because if you did feel you deserved it, you'd hold out for it. Not being judgmental, just getting out of the world of unicorn dust and fairy farts, I did give a trigger warning. You would hold out for it if you felt you deserved it. So where's your self-worth, my little loves, if this is you? Then what of the fear factor? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of losing? This person isn't in your life to lose. So you're addicted. Yeah, and I'm going to use that word. You are addicted to the idea of this person. And my belief is that is because it is easier than having the self-belief and the self-worth to get your butt out there on the dating scene and find that partner who you can share experiences, share life's ups and life's downs with, that person who has your back. I much prefer the sound of that to waiting and hoping for this legend to show up who's going to save you. So when this presents to me in this therapy room, the very first step, we need to build that self-worth. We need to build that self-belief up first before we do anything else. So I've got some questions to help you with that. But first of all, we're going to go on to scenario 2. So scenario 2, putting up with a person or a situation. So the person could be at work, they could be in home, they could be a partner, they could be a family member, a child, an ex. But we put up with this situation because we fear that if we hold out for any changes or stamp any of our authority over it or try and get some element of control, we may get an even worse outcome imaginable than we could possibly imagine. Okay, but this is very different to scenario one in terms of denial. Okay, this is far more subconscious, far more nuanced, far more complex. Because this type of denial most certainly impacts the way we handle things on a subconscious level. It affects the way we come across in this situation. Why? Because generally, we often believe or can be led to believe that we're part of the problem. So let me give you a little example that will bring this to life. I had a client I've been working with recently who is an absolute legend that came to me broken, believing they were crap at their job, working in a very, very toxic working environment. Now, it was bullish, ego-driven, proving oneself, throwing people under the bus to make yourself look better, showing people up, all that stuff. You shouldn't need feedback. You shouldn't need acknowledgement of doing anything well done. We've hired you because you are the best at what you do. Right, now some people would thrive in that. They'd love it. If you're in that ego-based phase of your life and you want to prove yourself, that might be just the right environment for you. But it wasn't the right environment for this person. And so they ended up believing that they were crap at their job, they should be able to handle the situation because everyone else seemed to be. So they were crap at their job, and it led them to become absolutely broken, highly anxious, and in a really terrible state. And this leads me on, before I talk about the amazing outcome, this leads me on to something that's very important to understand here where mental health is concerned. And anyone who comes to see me as a client will probably hear about this, and we will end up laughing about it at some point during the process of working together, because it's what I call the elephant in the room. When we get into trouble mentally, it's normally because there is an issue in our life that we're not facing into. I call it the elephant in the room. And here he is. Here's Bartholomew. When we've got an elephant in the room, it doesn't matter how many parties you go to, how many drinks you have, how many things you do to distract, holidays you have, whatever, the elephant's always there. It's always there. Same issue, different day, nothing resolved. And so he will go, it's still there. I appreciate the party. I love the drinks. They really played havoc with all my neurotransmitters. But I lost all my inhibitions and had a fantastic time. However, now we're sober and we've got a bit of a thick head, the elephant's still in the room. And he will nag you. We still haven't done anything about it. I don't like it. I don't like the way we're being treated. I don't like the way we're feeling. So I'm going to start getting upset till something happens about it. Interesting, isn't it? And what I often find happens in this room, and it makes me laugh because I recognize the elephant in the room straight away, but I'm never going to say to one of my clients, oh, that's the problem. You need to deal with that and all your problems will be solved. Because I know it's not as simple as that. We need to build your self-belief and your self-worth before we can even think about tackling the elephant in the room. But guess what? We get to a certain point and then people start recognizing what the bloody elephant in the room actually is. And then I start talking about the elephant in the room. And then when I ask them, oh, so what's that one thing that make a big difference or a little different? And they start laughing and say it's dealing with the elephant in the room. And we just collapse because we know exactly what we mean. It's like a little code, the elephant in the room. And some clients roll their eyes and go, I know, Ange, the elephant in the room. But they gradually come to this realization that once we've built up the energy and the capacity and a little bit of confidence, and we're feeling a little bit better and we're under better intellectual control, then we feel ready to tackle the elephant in the room. And that's when the magic starts happening. So what was the outcome for my amazing client then? Well, new job, better money, better company, better career prospects, wonderful environment. What's not to like? And that person is so deserving of that because they are a little legend. And I'm so proud of them for achieving all of that. So let's go back to denial then. As well, in this scenario, as well as the denial associated with fear, we also have a bit of a self-belief issue going on. I think in scenario 1, it's more self-worth with a mix of self-belief. But in this one, it's more self-belief and a mix of self-worth. There's a subtle difference. And that's because you believe you're part of the problem. I'm crap at my job, therefore I can't possibly leave and get a better job because I'm crap. Does that make sense? We get fixated on this idea that we're crap, and the elephant in the room remains. That's where the denial is. We don't face into that elephant. Other scenarios, I can't possibly achieve that training goal. I'm not good enough. I don't have the wherewithal to train like that. Poppycock. Utter poppycock. You don't have the self-belief. Get this one. This one's come up quite a lot recently. I'm a crap parent because I walked out of a toxic relationship for the sake of my sanity, but I left, so I'm the crap parent. Really? That probably will turn out to be the best thing you ever did for those kids, because you lessen the impact of a toxic environment at great personal cost. So what does that tell me about what a brave and courageous person you are when you show up at your best? Interesting, this denial stuff, isn't it? So how can we look at this from a different perspective then? So I've got some solution-focused questions for you to think about. As I always do, I like to leave you with a little bit of homework, and you can take me up on the challenge if you want to. But for scenario 1, where you are holding out and not accepting things as they are, let me just ask you to ask yourself this question, yeah? If you had that outcome that you're pining for in your life suddenly show up, what difference would that make to you? What would it give you that you don't feel you have now? And I'm going to make a huge assumption here, okay, just for the sake of an example, that you'd say something like, it would make me happy, thriving and confident. Okay, so my next question then is, if that happy, thriving and confident version of you showed up tomorrow, regardless of what's going on in your life, regardless of whether this person or situation is resolved in your life, how would you know? How would you know that you had shown up as that person today, that version of you? What would be different about you? How would that look and feel? What would you notice? And what would others notice that would let them know that you were happy, thriving and confident? So that's your little bit of homework. So for those of you dealing with scenario 2, sort of similar questions, but slightly different. If I wave my magic wand overnight, poof, yeah, and this person or this situation improved, or even better, resolved, and you have the best outcome you could possibly imagine or hope for, what difference would that make? What would that give you that you don't have now? And how would you know? Knowing that, how would you know things have gotten better? What would be different within you? And what would other people around you notice that would tell them that the situation had gotten better or resolved? What would they notice about you that was different? Now, I always say solution-focused questions are straightforward, but answering them is never easy. And these are not easy questions. You're going to have to reflect. You're going to have a think. So take your time. But also, I would strongly suggest, if you can, that you get someone who you love and trust to hold you to account on them, to help you, to hold you to account and get you to really answer those questions honestly. Because I think if you do that, you'll get the best value from this exercise, and you might just be surprised by what comes out of your little gobs, my little darlings. So I'm going to leave you with a quote now from Gary Zukav. Lack of self-worth is the fundamental source of all emotional pain. A feeling of insecurity, unworthiness, and a lack of value is the core experience of powerlessness. And we know now, don't we, that powerlessness is the fuel that drives the fear, that drives denial. So just remember, you are never powerless. You are little legends, all of you. I know, because I see this play out so much. You just need to be ready to deal with the elephant in the room. And when you are, there's loads of support out there for you, and I will be here for you if you need me. So take very good care, my little loves. I will leave you with those thoughts until the next video. See you soon.